5-year ban, community service for former immigration officer in human smuggling-related case. Urgent public meeting of Parliament to address the lack of confidence in the Minister of VSA and other parliamentary matter. MP Omar Otley. Coalition chooses survival over accountability. Madam Margaret Price Findlay. Swearing-in ceremony of the 14th Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for May 28, 2026. The Court of First Instance has convicted former immigration officer WCC for violating official secrecy in connection with a human smuggling investigation. The defendant was not tried or convicted for human smuggling offences themselves. The court, in its sitting, imposed a sentence of 180 hours of community service, with a conditional prison sentence of 3 months suspended on a probation period of 3 years. In addition, the court ordered a 5-year ban, preventing the defendant from working as a civil servant. The case stems from an investigation launched in 2024 into suspected human smuggling activities. On May 29, 2024, the police force of Sint Maarten, KPSM, in cooperation with the Prosecutor's Office Sint Maarten, SXM, arrested 2 suspects in the ongoing investigation, including WCC, who at the time was employed as an immigration officer. Due to the involvement of a government official, the National Detectives, Landsrecherche, also played a role in the investigation. The investigation was conducted by the human smuggling team of KPSM under the direction of the Prosecutor's Office. The Prosecutor's Office considers integrity within government services, particularly within agencies tasked with border protection and immigration control, to be of critical importance. Violations of official secrecy by public officials undermine trust in public institutions and can compromise criminal investigations and border security efforts. The police force of Sint Maarten, KPSM, is currently conducting an ongoing investigation into a series of breaking incidents reported over the past several weeks in the Belvedere, Nazareth, and Dutch Quarter areas. KPSM has received several complaints from residents concerning homes and vehicles that were broken into. During these incidents, various tools and other valuable items were stolen from vehicles and properties. Based on information gathered during the investigation, police officers received intelligence indicating that some of the stolen items were being stored at a residence in the Dutch Quarter area. Officers immediately proceeded to the location on Thursday, May 27, 2026, where they confiscated several bags containing tools believed to be linked to the reported thefts. KPSM has also seen several videos circulating online showing a suspect allegedly breaking into vehicles in the affected areas. Detectives are currently reviewing this footage as part of the ongoing investigation. Police are asking members of the public who may have video footage, surveillance recordings, or cell phone videos related to these incidents to contact the detective department. This information may assist investigators in accurately identifying the suspect involved in these crimes. KPSM is now urging residents who may have been victims of these break-ins, especially those who have not yet filed an official police report, to come forward and visit the Philipsburg police station. Victims will have the opportunity to review the recovered tools and determine whether any of the confiscated items belong to them. Detectives involved in the investigation have identified a possible suspect connected to these cases and are actively searching for him. The suspect was not present at the residence when officers arrived at the location. KPSM continues to encourage the community to remain vigilant and to report any suspicious activity immediately. Anyone with information regarding these breaking and entering incidents or the whereabouts of the suspect is asked to contact the police force of St. Martin at +1 721 542 22222 or anonymously via the tip line at 9300. Urgent public meeting of Parliament to address the lack of confidence in the Minister of VSA, Richinel Brugge, and other parliamentary matters.
And for the record, I would like to state that I stand firmly by the statements I have made and the documentation that was submitted to the members of Parliament substantiating my allegations. I will first begin with questions from the Honourable Member of Parliament, Veronica Janssen. First question, the example of the stolen car, did that story have to do with Ye Zedenway? Madam Chair, in short, yes. The stolen car story is an example used to explain how the Prime Minister, who is responsible for Ye Zedenway, which is a very critical department within government, that all ministers and ministries are dependent on, is accusing my cabinet member and indirectly my person for not adhering to legislation. While my cabinet requests input from legal affairs and after multiple requests to respond, the reaction was, I quote, "Please note that the department is experiencing challenges due to lack of capacity, notwithstanding the holiday period. Nevertheless, it is at the discretion of the minister to determine the way forward, bearing all responsibilities for such," end quote. So yes, if I come to you or your department for advice and you do not react despite reminders sent, and only thereafter find it fit to inform me of capacity issues and that I can proceed as I see fit, then shouldn't the consequences also be borne by the one responsible to ensure that the department in question is able to provide the advice and guidance as requested? Madam Chair, that department is there to protect us as ministers. So when we send them information and put certain indication of how urgent the information is, Madam Chair, we would expect that answers will be given in order for us to move forward so that we know what is the best course of action so that I don't find myself in this situation and no other minister find themselves in this situation. Madam Chair, Member of Parliament Ms. Veronica Janssen-Webster asked how the minister is able to proceed in the absence of the Ye Zedenway advice. She further inquired whether there have been instances in which other advices were approved without the review or input of legal affairs. Madam Chair, both I and many ministers before me, including the former Minister Janssen-Webster, have approved advices and signed agreement with external parties without first seeking formal input from the Department of Legal Affairs. As such, I do find it somewhat interesting that MP Janssen would raise such a question. Nonetheless, let me reiterate once again that my cabinet did in fact request input from the Department of Legal Affairs. Regarding this matter, a reminder was also sent requesting at minimum confirmation of receipt. Unfortunately, the requested legal input simply never reached us. In addition, Madam Chair Lady, my cabinet and I have from the onset actively sought clarification regarding which advices or contracts outside of legislations are formally required to be submitted to legal affairs for vetting. To date, no clear legal framework, policy, or written guidelines has been provided outlining such an obligation, as no one has been able to give a definitive answer on the matter. Therefore, while legal input was sought in this case, there also appears to be a broader lack of clarity within government regarding when such vetting is mandatory and when it's not. I can state, however, that it is customary practice that within my cabinet to submit all contracts and advices for legal review, whether internally or externally. That has always been our practice and will continue to do so. The following question, if I understood correctly, the Member of Parliament requested clarification regarding which laws the Prime Minister is alleged to have violated in connection with the BIC registration matter. First, Article 38 of the Constitution of St. Martin, which states that ministries are governed by the respective minister. Together with the Leol and the Organisatiebesluit, these laws outline the responsibilities and authority of the respective ministers and their ministries. Second, Article 39 of the Constitution, together with Articles 6, 9, and 16 of the Rules of Order of the Council of Ministers, governs how advices are submitted, placed on the Council of Ministers' agendas, and discussion for decision-making. Lastly, Article 47 of the Comparabiliteit Landsverordening requires a public bidding for government services exceeding 50,000 guilders. In this case, the value of the project involved exceeds said amount. Under these rules, the Prime Minister does not have the authority to reject or alter advices belonging to the Ministry of VSA or any other ministry, as a matter of fact, while acting in the capacity of Prime Minister. Madam Chair, if a minister is pressured by another minister to change decision points on an advice before it can be placed on the Council of Ministers' agenda, it is simply abuse of power. Lastly, withholding an advice from the Council of Ministers because of personal interest goes against the principles of good governance, transparency, and rules of law.
Committee of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports Affairs to continue discussions with the Minister of ECYS regarding the EGRA and EGMA results. I'm starting with questions from MP La Cruz. Question 1. When did these numbers come to the Minister? The advice presenting the AGRA-EGMA results for Group 3 and the National Assessment results for Group 5 was formally approved by the Minister on February 16, 2026. Before this working draft report was shared with me on November 21, 2025. The preliminary results were subsequently presented to me, the school boards, school management, and teachers on December 3, 2025.
Starting with questions from MP La Cruz. Question 1, when did these numbers come to the Minister? The advice presenting the EGRA-EGMA results for Group 3 and the National Assessment results for Group 5 was formally approved by the Minister on February 16, 2026. Prior to this, a working draft of the report was shared with me on November 21st, 2025. The preliminary results were subsequently presented to me, school boards, school management, and teachers on December 3rd, 2025. Question 2. What is the plan of government and the ministry to address these issues and to close the gaps in advising teachers? The ministry is implementing a structured, system-wide approach to address identified gaps in literacy and numeracy. Key measures include sharing assessment results with school boards and management, with instructions to cascade discussions to teachers and parents, conducting an integrated review of EGRA-EGMA results alongside the FBE evaluation report, engaging stakeholders to define targeted evidence-based interventions. Additionally, the ministry has received proposals for train-the-trainer programs focused on teaching in multilingual contexts. Selected teachers from each school will be trained and will subsequently transfer knowledge and techniques to their colleagues. A follow-up national assessment is planned for 2027 for Groups 3, 5, and 7, with support to the Trust Fund to measure student progression and evaluate the effectiveness of interventions. Question 3. What is the plan to help teachers stop worrying how they are going to survive, for example, the salary scales, which are demotivating? The Ministry, through the Department of Education and in collaboration with TEWEO, is formalizing a project to review the Functieboek-onderwijs and develop a remuneration policy. In parallel, a broader initiative titled Enhancing the Career Trajectory of Education Professionals is underway, which includes the development of a professional development appraisal instrument. These efforts aim to improve career progression pathways, provide structured performance evaluation, and strengthen retention and motivation within the teaching profession. Question 4. The MP would like to see the last 10 years of statistics. If they are available, would like to know where we are at and where we are going. EGRA-EGMA assessments, Mr. Chairman, were introduced nationally in 2023 for Group 3. So 10 years of historical EGRA-EGMA data is not available. However, the 2023 and 2025 assessment results now provide an important baseline of where students stand in foundational literacy and numeracy and where the most urgent gaps are. The Ministry does not intend to review the EGRA-EGMA results in isolation. They must be considered alongside the FBE evaluation so that the response addresses both student performance and the wider system issues affecting learning outcomes, including curriculum alignment, classroom support, language realities, teacher development, and progress monitoring. The Ministry recognizes the seriousness of the results and agrees that action is needed. However, the response must be targeted and evidence-based, not reactive. The goal is to guide immediate school-level support while developing a broader plan of approach that responds to both reports in a practical and sustainable manner. As part of this forward planning, the Ministry has discussed the next assessment cycle during the most recent FRLP mission with the World Bank, with tentative agreement to conduct the next national assessment in 2027 for Groups 3, 5, and 7 with support through the Trust Fund. This will help track student progress, assess whether interventions are working, and determine where adjustments are needed. And as I shared in the first instance of this meeting, Mr. Chairman, the intention is also to include the private schools. Next question from MP La Cruz. In order to see an increase in the budget of MECIs, we need to see a plan from the Minister. We cannot see a decrease in the budget for 2026. Show how the Ministry needs funding and where help is needed to improve education. Mr. Chairman, through you to MP La Cruz, the Ministry anticipates several operational challenges as a result of the 2026 budget cuts, including, but not limited to, hiring challenges and delays in filling critical vacancies, which continue to impact service delivery across departments and divisions, constraints in maintaining adequate staffing levels, particularly in technical and specialized roles, and difficulties in covering operational expenses, including resources required for program implementation, maintenance, and support services. Additionally, the 2026 budget constraints are expected to limit the Ministry's ability to advance new policy initiatives, scale ongoing reform efforts, and respond with the necessary agility to emerging sector needs, particularly in areas requiring sustained structural investment, such as education reform, student support services, and system modernization. It should further be noted that these constraints do not exist in isolation, but compound existing systemic pressures, including long-standing capacity limitations, aging infrastructure, and increasing service demands across the education, culture, youth, and sports sectors. While the Ministry remains committed to prioritizing its core responsibilities and safeguarding critical interventions, the pace, sequencing, and overall scope of implementation in 2026 will be directly influenced by the financial parameters within which the Ministry must operate. Accordingly, the Ministry will continue to exercise prudent prioritization and phased execution to ensure that available resources are deployed where they are most impactful while maintaining continuity of essential services.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to smp.sx and sign up now.
Your social health insurances.
Marinka Gums, Minister of Finance, Parliament meeting regarding several draft national ordinances on financial oversight. Is the issue of uniformity within the monetary union if the intention is to maintain harmonized legislation between Carousel and St. Martin? The MP does not fully understand why some of these laws were passed in 2017 and were already approved in Carousel, while others were only being introduced in 2025. We would therefore like to understand how this timing difference impact the principle of uniformity and what approach will be taken moving forward with your manager. I would like to thank the Honourable MP for the question, and I fully acknowledge the importance of uniformity within the monetary union.
Is the issue of uniformity within the monetary union. If the intention is to maintain harmonized legislation between Curacao and St. Martin, the MP does not fully understand why some of these laws date back to 2017 and were already approved in Curacao, while others were only being introduced in 2025. The MP would therefore like to understand how this timing difference impacts the principle of uniformity and what approach will be taken moving forward. And through you, Madam Chair, I would like to thank the Honourable MP for the question, and I fully acknowledge the importance of uniformity within the monetary union. It is important to note that the oldest draft legislation, which was approved in Curacao in 2017, was already submitted to Parliament in St. Martin in 2023. As such, the process toward alignment has been underway for some time. At the same time, I do understand the concern regarding the difference in timelines between legislation approved in different years. Moving forward, greater coordination, not only between governments, but also between both parliaments, would certainly strengthen consistency and improve the overall perception of uniformity within the monetary union. Next question. From the perspective of uniformity within the monetary union, the MP would like to understand what measures have been taken to ensure better synchronization between Curacao and St. Martin, given that these draft laws are reportedly discussed jointly with Curacao, the central bank, and the respective legal teams. It can create the perception that St. Martin is consistently lagging behind in the process. If these matters are being coordinated jointly at the technical level, why can they not also be coordinated more closely from a parliamentary and legislative agenda perspective? Through you, Madam Chair, I thank the Honourable MP for her question, and I do understand the concern regarding the timing and coordination of these draft laws within the monetary union. It is true that one of the draft laws entered into force in Curacao several years ago and is only now before Parliament in St. Martin. At the same time, there are also areas where St. Martin has moved ahead more quickly on other legislative proposals. Recognizing the importance of alignment and uniformity, I took the decision to submit all draft laws together so that Parliament could consider them in a more coordinated manner. I also believe there is a value in continuing dialogue and coordination between all relevant stakeholders, including the governments, the central bank, legal teams, and both parliaments, to further strengthen harmonization within the monetary union. Next question. If we are operating within the same monetary union, should we not explore a more coordinated approach to ensure the amendments or that amendments to these laws are introduced and addressed around the same time in both countries so that implementation and application can also remain as uniform as possible. Through you, Madam Chair, I do believe that greater synchronization between both countries would be beneficial to the functioning of the monetary union and to maintaining legal uniformity. Going forward, as Minister of Finance, I intend to continue strengthening dialogue and coordination with my counterparts in Curacao, the Central Bank, and the respective legal teams with the aim of encouraging earlier alignment and more parallel legislative timelines where possible. I also believe there is value in fostering greater engagement between both parliaments to support that process.
The President of Parliament, Sarah Westcott Williams, speaks out. To Minister Patrice Gums, I want to refer you, Minister. So, going back to even before your tomb, to the amount of writings that you receive from me, and when I say you, Minister, I am talking about the Ministry of Romy on beach policies. Minister, I would kindly ask you to make note of the topics that I mentioned, the beach policies. Parliament is full of writing on this matter from me, and to a lesser degree, others. In the meeting of the Parliament on May 26, 2026,
I want to refer you, Minister, to going back to even before your term, to the amount of writings that you received from me. And when I say you, Minister, I am talking the Ministry of Romy on beach policies. Minister, I would kindly ask you to make note of the topics that I mentioned, the beach policies. Parliament is full of writings on this matter from me and to a lesser degree others. The ban on plastic bags, another topic, a law passed unanimously by Parliament. And up to the day of today, as recent as a couple of weeks ago, I could not, upon asking, get a clear answer on this matter. Minister, on the matter of zoning, same thing holds true. And I have been told by Minister of Romy after Minister of Romy that one, the country would be divided in zoning areas to be zoned. Communities were consulted on these proposed zoning plans. Only then, after these consultations take place, to hear that somebody in their wisdom decided that we are going to zone the whole island. So I and others sat and waited. Today, we don't have one approved zoning plan for this country. The records will show. Yesterday, we were supposed to approve because nature policy plans require approval by the Parliament of the country. Hence, that document was on the docket, on the roster, on the schedule yesterday. The Nature Policy Plan 21-25, a beautiful document, went down with hardly any attention until a new one has been drafted, 2030, so 2026 through 2030. In that one, again, like in previous ones, the things such as hillside policy, tree policy, beach policy, and more policies are mentioned. Minister, I ain't putting nobody on notice. I ain't asking you for much more than your attention and any budgetary consequences on the matters that are mentioned in the Nature Policy Plan for St. Martin. Coincidentally, just a couple of days ago, I ask of you, how can we control these matters? And you mentioned what you mentioned earlier about environmental inspectors being approved. I expect to see that happen as per your statement, Minister.
The final vote, 6 in favour and 7 against the dismissal of Minister Avromi Patrice Gums of the PFP party, sent a clear and troubling message to the people of St. Martin. For this coalition of DP, URSM and PFP, political survival appears to matter more than public suffering. For nearly 2 years, the people of this country have voiced growing frustration over worsening conditions, overflowing sewage, uncollected garbage, permit stagnation, deteriorating infrastructure, and a general sense that basic governance has stalled. Yet despite these repeated complaints from citizens and businesses alike, the coalition demonstrated through its actions that these concerns were secondary to preserving its own political arrangement. The motion against Minister Patrice did not appear overnight. It came after months of public dissatisfaction and parliamentary concern. More telling, however, was the coalition's behaviour leading up to the vote. For nearly 2 months, the coalition delayed and manoeuvred, seemingly aware that at least one of its own members was prepared to put country above coalition politics and support the motion brought by the opposition. When the debate finally took place on May 26, 2026, coalition members of Parliament effectively admitted what the people already knew. The motion itself had merit. 6 weeks. Their defence of the minister was not based on a strong record of accomplishment over the past 2 years, but rather on the argument that they had observed improvement in his performance during the last 6 weeks. That was apparently enough justification to overlook 2 years of mounting public frustration and administrative failures. The coalition's message to the people was unmistakable: live to fight another day. Bob Marley once famously sang, "Who the cap fit, let them wear it." Today, the people of St. Martin threw their corn and called the foul. But instead of responding decisively and restoring some measure of public confidence, the coalition chose self-preservation over accountability. At a time when citizens are already burdened by rising fuel costs, the ongoing Gibi crisis, and visible deterioration in public services, this vote represented more than just parliamentary arithmetic. It represented a missed opportunity to show the people that standards still matter in public office. Perhaps most concerning is the contradiction now exposed before the country. If even coalition MPs acknowledge that a minister's performance has been lacking for nearly 2 years, and if they recognize that the people are suffering because of these shortcomings, then what exactly is the threshold for accountability?
Now for the weather forecast, tonight through Friday, midday. Fair to partly cloudy and hazy. Isolated showers are likely. Surface winds, tonight through Friday midday. East-northeast to east-southeast, with a light to moderate breeze between 6 to 13 mm's. State of the sea. Slight waves, swells 2 to 4 feet. Outlook through Saturday midday. Partly cloudy and slightly hazy. Isolated showers are likely. And now your 3-day forecast.
Your social and health insurance
Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
The Ministry of Justice has declined to comment on questions surrounding the detention conditions of Dr. Danny Dinwiddie Jr. at Point Blanche Prison, stating that matters relating to pre-trial detention and ongoing criminal proceedings fall under the authority of the Public Prosecutor's Office and the court. The response followed a series of questions submitted by the Daily Herald to Justice Minister Natalie Tackling regarding prison conditions, detention policy, and the safety of pre-trial detainees housed at the Point Blanche facility. The questions were prompted by remarks made by a prosecutor during court proceedings on May 20th in a separate narcotics trafficking case in which a convicted man was sentenced to 42 months imprisonment with 12 months suspended. During those proceedings, the prosecutor stated in court that the convicted individual was not expected to begin serving his sentence in the near future due to the island's prison capacity constraints. It may take 4 to 5 years until the new prison has been built. We currently only incarcerate murderers, rapists, and armed robbers, the prosecutor said. Following those remarks, the Daily Herald sought clarification on why Dr. Dinwiddie, who remains in pre-trial detention and has not been convicted of any crime, continues to be held at Point Blanche Prison while awaiting continuation of criminal proceedings. In its written response, the Ministry of Justice said it understood the public interest surrounding the matter, but emphasized that it could not comment on individual cases. The ministry is unable to comment on individual pending criminal cases, including decisions relating to pre-trial detention, the grounds for such detention, requests for alternative measures, or statements made by the prosecutor during court proceedings. The ministry stated, St. Lucia Government. The swearing-in ceremony of our 14th Justice, Her Ladyship, the Honourable Madam Margaret Price, Findlay. My most prestigious letters patent, His Majesty King Charles, informed, and I quote, to all to whom this presence shall come, greeting, knowing that we are a special grace, have appointed, and by these precincts do appoint, our trustee and well-beloved Margaret Allison Price Findlay to the office of Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in accordance with the provisions of the West Indies. Associated States Supreme Court Order 1967, in witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent, witness ourselves at Westminster, the 9th day of April, in the 4th year of our reign.
It was just over a year ago that retired Justice Mario Michel was speaking to, I believe it was Justice Trevor Ward and myself, about some of the stresses of the office of Chief Justice. And in my attempt at empathizing with him, I said to him something that my mother always said as a child while I was growing up. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Little did I know that not too long after that conversation, that the crown would be placed on my head and further firmly attached to it today after this ceremony. This has been a very special week for my family. My mom turned 96 years old on Sunday. Today, the day of my swearing in, is my sister's birthday. I will not tell you how old she is. I would like her to continue speaking to me. I am grateful and happy that she can share this special day with me along with my son Jordan, who is somewhere in this crowd here, and I will not say where. While this is a happy and joyous occasion, there is a tinge of sadness in that some of the persons who have made a contribution to my development are not physically here to celebrate with me. I will not go back as far as to say that when I was in vitro, some of these people knew me. But my primary school teachers, my high school teachers, my father, who championed every cause which I undertook, and who I know would have been so proud today. My aunts, Althea and Jean, who always encouraged me. The late Frederick Bruce Lyle, the late Susie Doran, the late Celia Edwards, all of whom saw in me leadership qualities long before I even thought of being a High Court judge. I also cannot forget Margaret Board and Lewis Hunt, who encouraged me as a young lawyer to achieve what I have achieved today. I would also like to thank all the family and friends who have called, messaged their congratulations. Thank you for your continued support. If anyone had told me when I arrived in the BVI in January of 1991 that I would today stand before you as the Chief Justice of this venerable institution, and only the second woman to hold this office, I would certainly not have believed you. When I was asked to act as CJ just over a year ago, to say that I was apprehensive about taking on this role would be an understatement. I knew it was not an easy road, and I also knew that I was being asked to follow in the footsteps of some of the finest legal minds that have graced this institution. The last names Lewis, Rawlins, Byron, Robotham, Saunders, Flozak, and Elaine are now joined humbly today by Price Finley. It is my duty to continue that work that these legal luminaries have started. I have been acting in this post for a little over a year, having taken up the office on the 5th of May 2025. It has been a learning experience, but I have had a staff who have truly been the wind beneath my wings. I am not sure that you all knew that there were days when you carried me because I felt overwhelmed. That support has come from the highest position to the least. It might have been just a smile or a hi or hello that lifted my spirits, or it might have been offering a solution to a complex problem. For me, It matters not where you are placed in an organization. You are important, you are somebody in that organization, and I will always try to respect and acknowledge your contribution to the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.